What's up, everybody? Thanks again for stopping by for another edition of March 4th with Mike Bauman. I, of course, am your host, Mike Bauman. Whoever you are, wherever you are listening from, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. If you're a returning listener, I greatly appreciate your continued love and support. And if you're a brand new listener of the show, man, thank you so much for hopping aboard that pirate ship. You can follow me on Instagram at March 4th Pod, on YouTube at March 4th Pod. My website is march4th.podbean.com. The link tree with all of my stuff is in the podcast description for this episode. So that means if you made it here, then you found me somehow. And I truly appreciate each and every one of yous checking out another edition of March 4th with Mike Bauman podcast. I hope that everybody is doing great out there. I hope that your 2024 is off to a great start, man. We're in the thick of the winter season here where I live in the United States in Tennessee, and it's always funny, man. That first snow, people get a little loco. So everybody stay safe out there. Give yourself some extra time. If you got to drive to the office, keep some kitty litter or some sand in your trunk, not only for a little bit of weight back there so you don't slip and slide, but also if you get stuck, hat, gloves, scraper, all that stuff, man. This is basic stuff, at least where I'm from in the Midwest. But I hope that everybody's doing well, man. I'm excited for what the year has to offer. It's one of those things, man, not to get too trippy, but with numbers and everything, 24 is one of my favorite numbers. That was my favorite number that I played in when I played basketball. Wore it for 2 years and was ended up made famous by a much better basketball player than I, and one late great Kobe Bean Bryant. I digress, but yeah, man, I'm really excited for what the year has to offer. Had a great kickoff episode with my buds in Tropic Bombs. Make sure you go check out their Kickstarter. The bumper music you hear on this show is from them, and they've got an awesome new musical project and board game going on right now. It's already more than 50% funded, but they've got some cool stuff, so check them out. But yeah, man, I'm really excited and really jazzed about what this year has to offer, and I hope that you are too. These past few years, man, have been wild, as I've talked about numerous times on this show in terms of COVID. The stuff that I've gone through on a personal level with death and loss and heartbreak, and it just feels good to be in a position where you work on something, you see it grow, you make positive connections, and you just keep on keeping on, man. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm really excited as I approach my 36th year on this planet. It's kind of crazy, man. To think about life and think about life expectancy, and to think that mine is halfway down the hourglass there, but that means my glass is still half full, and I got a lot of time left, hopefully. But I'm gonna one of my goals this year is to be focused more in the present moment. That quote I've seen a few times already, and maybe it's a message from the universe: be where your feet are. That's so important, man. Like, the past is nothing but dust and memories. The future isn't real because it's not here yet, so all we have is today, as cheesy as that may sound. So that's my advice to you. Not that you asked for it, but just focus on what's in front of you. Focus on today. Focus on being better than you were yesterday. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Just do what makes you happy. Work hard. Be good to people, and I promise you, in due time, man, you will see the fruits of your labor. At least in my experience, that's been the case. So yeah, I hope that everybody's doing well out there. And speaking of, you know, what's on the horizon for 2024, new beginnings, pushing through grief and dark times, translating negatives into positives. This week's guest, man, is like he's somebody that I have a lot of respect for. And one thing I love about this show is that I get a chance to connect with people from all over the world and share these conversations with you guys out there. And one thing that I really try to promote on this show is unity, in the fact that we can come from different walks of life. We can come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different parts of the world, but there are always those common threads that bring us together as human beings. And one of the big ones, I think, is music. Music and art of any kind is sort of that universal language that it doesn't matter you come from different parts of the world, you can relate on it. And beyond relating on music, this week's guest has also gone through his fair share of tough times, and including during the pandemic. But he's using his music and his talent to translate it into a positive. He is none other than Hani Abadi. Many of you may recognize him from his metal band Bilocate. He originally is from the Middle East. He was born in actually what was then known as Yugoslavia. He now resides in the Bay Area in California. And this dude is a really awesome, kind, down to earth musician. Like I was talking about, how music is one of those uniting factors of people around the world. Like me, he's a big Metallica fan, grew up loving Metallica, Master of Puppets, and with Bilocate, they've gotten to do all kinds of shows, man, in different parts of the world. And recently, at the end of November, he just released his debut full length album, Tiamat, and this record, man, is really a great exploration in grief, love, loss, and just what it means to be a human, man. Just the human experience. And I don't want to give too much away here in the intro, but we relate on a lot of these subjects. And this record is really a great journey from front to back. Tiamat, if you guys aren't familiar with that meaning is, that mythology, that's the primordial goddess of the sea. So again, I don't want to give too much away other than to say that, in this conversation, Hani really opens up to me about, the meaning of these songs on this record. Some of the subject matter that inspired this work, to go in a singer-songwriter, more acoustic path. Coming from the metal work that he does with Bilocate, it's very different. It was challenging for him, but he really translated a lot of darkness that he was going through into a positive creative outlet with this record. And it's catching on with people, man. He's released numerous lyric videos and music videos. Among them, there was a claymation music video for the song My Story off of Tiamat. And that one has got over 21,000 views on YouTube. The music video for Dementia is an AI music video that's really cool, and it kind of goes through sort of like the chaotic nature of that unfortunate disease. That video has over 32,000 views, and there's just so many cool moments on there. I really love the guitar part in Eulogy, and we talk about that, but it's just a really great exploration on taking darkness and translating into light through his art. And we had a great conversation about metal, about grief, about love, loss, and about this album, and challenging yourself and pushing through the darkness to get to the light. So without further ado, I'm going to shut my big yapper and give you guys my conversation with Hani Abadi. Here it is. Well, Hani, I really appreciate the time, man. I can gab with the best of them, so I promise now that I've actually hit record, I won't be talking as much because this is your story and your path in this conversation. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself, especially with your record. I relate a lot to the themes on it and the stories behind it, man. So thank you so much for taking the time to do the show, dude. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that, and I'm really glad that the song has resonated with you. And again, this is part of why I do music. Um, like as you said, some of the tracks had to deal with death of immediate family for me, and during that weird period that we all experienced in a global level. So it was very hard. So for me, doing the music was the least I could really do to immortalize them. And because I know music in a sense will outlive me, and in that way, that's the only way I can pay my respect and tribute that to them. So it really was, this record is very personal to some extent, and something that I wanted to do for so long. And it took me many years to actually arrive at this point, because for me, I don't know if I that my origins is from the Middle East, and I actually also, I was a bassist for, I'm still a bassist actually for the band called Bilocate. So we do like a kind of dark oriental metal. Is It's very completely different from what I'm doing now. So I never thought of myself like, hey, I want to be a singer or just like do my whole thing. So this is, for me, was a very challenging record because I had to be um pushing beyond my comfort level.
Yeah, yeah. For people who don't know, like you said, you're originally from the Middle East. You were born in what was then Yugoslavia, right?
Sure. So it no longer exists on the map. Then they have, it's in a country called, now they call it North Macedonia. So they changed it, they split up into 7 countries, and this whole area. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like, because I was born in 2 regions that always had so many conflicts growing up. So, the Balkans and even the Middle East, both of them are always been, and there's always many things going on in there. So that's a lot of it probably has shaped who I am and shaped my views and shaped my understanding of what is really important in life, which is, for me now, you're just looking at it, is just, it's always about, because people think about like, hey, fame, and I want to be doing that, but and money and all of that, but it comes down to actually, just family and the people you care about, and just being who you are for the people around you, and just live your life in a simple way as possible, and in a way that you want to be contributing more than taking.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be 36 this year, and it's crazy. Like a buddy of mine and I were just texting the other day how like you know, he sent me a story from a long time ago, a picture from a night we were out, and I was like, man, that feels like a lifetime ago. And he said it really was, because this year I'll be out of high school as many years as I was on this earth when I graduated from high school. Like I was 18 when I graduated, and I'm gonna be 18 years removed from high school this year. And the older you get, the more you realize, like you said, how important it is to to be good to the people around you, your family, your friends, and even through COVID, I think it made a lot of people really reevaluate, myself included, priorities and the things that are important to me. Not that I felt like my life was out of whack before that, but just the emphasis on what that's like when you can't see people, or if you do, it might be kind of dangerous. um, but here we have so many luxuries, I feel like, compared to just my understanding of where you're from, and like you said, growing up in an area like that and how it shaped you. One thing we do have in common, Hani, is the metal, because Metallica was also my gateway into heavy music, and I saw that you grew up with Master of Puppets, which is, I think, probably for a lot of Metallica fans maybe their favorite record. But how did the heavy music grab you at a young age? Because I even read that Bilocate was like forbidden in your hometown, so it was like
Right.
it's for you to like play that music, which a lot of people here, they have no idea in the States what that's like, to have that kind of like, hey, like this
it,
is dangerous to do this.
I mean, as I reflect, because many years have passed and you kind of like make your peace with it. But as I reflect on it, it's crazy at the time, because you're still young at that period. And like the way I think we were introduced to music is through my bandmates at the time, Ramsey, and his brother Wasim. Their brother, I believe, was in the US, and he had like cassettes from like Metallica and Pink Floyd, and that's how we got introduced to these things. And so when I'm using the word cassettes now, I feel like I'm a dinosaur, and so it's the it's the medium that we used to listen to music to, because there was no radios, there's nothing that's and that's the only way you can get to music. And with that is you burn the cassette, it's just like on repeat, and it's just like it's the music itself, it's it just it's hard to describe, because it resonates with you, and especially given where we are, and you're looking around and you just, because most of the time, especially in Jordan or the Middle East, most of the pop songs, or they say in Arabic, is that they talk about themes that are around love and all of that. So it wasn't like something that are very, this was very completely different. It's much deeper. There's stories, there's things that I gravitate towards, because at that time I used to read a lot whenever I had, from the library, and just you trying to have another way of escaping where you are. And even like, for example, having a long hair in there, it was like a big deal. So I had to hide my hair under a cap all the time.
Oh, wow.
And wearing a black shirt with a Vans, it was like, it's insane, because you will be labeled Satanist. So I remember, like having like an Iron Maiden shirt. So it doesn't make it feel any good, I think. So, or if you want to have one of Cradle of Filth, for example, those, like, no way you'll be able to walk around with these. So
They're like the
it was
Joker from hell. Yeah, you're wearing it, and they're like, you literally
these
got.
are probably, like, hand over. It's just like you're buying it from a dude who wear it for probably 3 years, and you just like, it just circles around
Yeah.
the one shirt. So it's just not like I think there was like few places that they tried to get music into Jordan, but usually through cassettes, and it's all underground. And so it was it just, it's not like now, you just you can stream whatever you want. Is You really have to dig around to find good music. So I'm fortunate enough, because it kind of makes you a different listener, because when you listen to the album, you kind of dissect every thing in it. You kind of like, you get the first round, the second, the third, and then you start, like, it just like when you have this aha moment. Oh, I haven't heard this part before, even though you heard it like 1,000 times. It's just like one thing that it's in the background. You're gonna just like, oh, and now you're hearing it. So it's gonna like, it has its blessing, I believe. So it was a very weird time for us. And as I said, being labeled with satanisms, and had even we weren't able to play music in there, and we had our some of our shows canceled by authority, and even there's a possibility of being imprisoned for that. So it just, as I reflect on it now, it's just like a science fiction, with all the newspaper writing nonsense, which is so weird. Like the parties of these Satanists were drinking cat bloods or whatever, they can come up with. So it's science fiction, but the society buys that. So
Yeah, it's wild, man. Like so I was born in 88, but as I got into heavier music, when I was like around like 9, 10, 11, my big brother Brandon was really into like Metallica and Korn and everything that was going on in the mid 90s and even the early 90s, the Seattle scene with Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all that. But but as I got older, I started to become more aware of what you're talking about. Like here in the States, they called it the satanic panic, where they were labeling people. And then sadly, there was even a murder that happened of some little boys. I'm trying to remember the state. I think it might have been Arkansas, and they pinned it on these
Mm.
guys, the West Memphis. I think it was the West Memphis Three they called them because they were like the metal guys in town. And it later came out years later that they ended up being exonerated because of like new technology and DNA evidence and whatnot. And so it's pretty wild, but what you're talking about is like another level. That's why I made the joke of like people probably looked at you like, oh, they actually got that shirt from the devil himself, because it's like when you're talking a country where you don't have the same kind of freedoms even that we have here, like here you could still buy that stuff. There might be certain religious communities that are more strict, or obviously certain, households. In a weird way, the parental advisory sticker, I think, actually became like a badge of honor for the, kids were like, no, I don't want the clean version. I want the
Give me the good ones.
yeah, but it's wild even today how I feel like music and entertainment is kind of like the easy target for blaming more psychological issues that go on with people. Or like you said, books are a form of escapism. And even here in the States we have like book banning that still goes on, and it's like art is a form of escape. And I feel like the well-adjusted people, they're not going to look at certain themes, whether it's like Iron Maiden's The Number of the Beast. That's not going to make them want to go worship the devil. Like you said, that maybe if they really want to learn those cool bass parts in there, or they want to learn that riff, or that they're gonna appreciate the music and the imagery for what it is, which is art and fantasy, and not getting people to rally and hold black masses and stuff. But kudos to you guys for having the guts to still do what you love to do, man, because I think that just shows your love for music. Because, here people might raise their eyebrows, or you might get some bad press, but you still have the freedom to do it. You don't have to worry about going to jail. That's really gnarly, man.
But I guess in a sense, it kind of worked in our favor because you start looking, on different avenues. Like, what can I do? It was like it kind of pushed us as a band at time, or even like, hey, like we need to be playing outside the country. Let's go and like where we can play in other different countries, and that's that push it what made us perform and even be able to tour Europe and playing in festivals and all of that. So it kind of you just cannot complain that, hey, I cannot do it. Everybody is just like the whole society is against me and play that card. It doesn't work because you need to even figure out, because even for I remember even the our first record, Sudden Death Syndrome, um we were working on the album, and at that time we were listening to Opeth, the album, I forgot the name. I think it's 2005. It's not crossing my mind, but at that point I was reading the like who's the where it was mixed and mastered and all of that. So it was by Jens Bogren in Sweden, and I was telling the guys, hey, I want this guy to be doing our album, and they were all laughing like, what are you talking about? Like, you crazy? So and the days rolled, and I was able to reach out to the guy and send him our stuff, and he liked it, and he said like, I want to do it. And we end up working with him, and even that track, I think it has resonated with a lot of people because he was able to bring it to life. And it's even, I think, one of the top 100 records, I think, on Metal Storm, of all time. So it shows like you have to always, like, don't let anything stop you. Always dream big and act big, and you can achieve whatever you set your mind to do. There's nothing is impossible, whatever the circumstances are. I always believe there's always somebody out there who has it worse than me, so I should count my blessings.
That's a great way of looking at it, man. And it's even inspiring to hear you say that, especially like at the beginning of a new year when people are going to be listening to this. I think that's really awesome. And And you guys have done a lot of cool stuff with Bilocate too, right? I mean, you've played numerous festivals. I mean, are there any that stick out? Because I know like the European festivals, especially with metal, I just feel like the appreciation for it, overseas is like, I mean, I even think about one of my favorite bands like Alter Bridge and the audience that they have in like the UK and stuff. It's just they play like Wembley Arena and stuff over there. I mean, what were what have been some of the high watermarks, I guess you could say, for Bilocate? Are there any that stick out to you over the years?
I mean, I would trying to remember. I think we had this one of our first festivals, actually international, was in Lithuania. I think it was like in Devil's Stone. So even the name worked well. So I think that was, was very interesting, uh, because it was our first appearance, I think, outside, and our music, because it has a lot of Oriental touch to it, so the people wouldn't didn't know what to expect, and it kind of got really wild. So it's really, there's something about performing for thousands of people, and that whole collective energy that comes around it. You just like, and because for me, especially playing on the bass, I become in my own world, kind of like I'm not like I'm head banging in the air, so to speak. So, but that's how like I kind of embrace myself in that. So I think that would be the one of the ones that I were memorable, because we get to meet a lot of cool people that we even still know till today. So this is another aspect to it. It's just like you go to this place like out of nowhere, and you kind of end up meeting others, and it just, you see how that's the beauty about metal by itself, or the music, is the way it kind of breaks down everything, because we both like the same music. Good, you're my brother. That's it. It
Yeah,
just has that kind of a, there's no, it's just like you're ready. There's no barriers, because it's very hard, especially nowadays. I guess, as people get more isolated, there's no more personal interaction. It becomes hard and hard even to like, yeah, communicate for, I guess, for the newer generation. So for us, it's very important to have that instant connection, and just be yourself, talk, and that's it. And you're just having that commonality. It helps a lot in breaking down all any misconceptions you may have.
for sure. Well, I think that's cool that you were able to kind of, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like kind of break out of that bubble where you're being accused of being a Satanist, and you're doing what you love to do, and you're an endorsed bassist, which is, that's awesome. You know what I mean? That shows the work that you've put in on the instrument. And to be able to play these festivals and stuff, that's really awesome, man. So I congratulate you. I mean, you're like the embodiment of what you said, of chasing your dreams, and that's why I love doing this show. um so how long have you been in the States now, Hani? Like, because you're in the Bay Area, right?
Yes. I been here since like 2019. I think I came around June, and after that, I was welcomed with a pandemic. So
Okay. I
so
hear
I don't
like
know if I should count the pandemic period, even, like, because I kind of think of that period as like it doesn't even exist, because it just, there's nothing happened. But I'm actually, I managed to compose most of my music and write them at that period. But so yeah, I'm hitting my it just runs fast. It's almost like 4 or 5 years now are we hitting.
Yeah, so you came right before the apocalypse,
Yeah,
unfortunately. But like you said, you created this record, and again, please let me know if I'm not saying it correctly, but is it Tiamat? Is that how you say it?
Tiamat, yes.
and Tiamat.
Yeah.
And from what I looked up, it's the mythology of that, right?
Mm.
It's like a primordial goddess of like the sea, kind of like if you're going through, is it like if you're going through darkness or like on this trek? Am I
Yeah.
close?
So I think for me, when it came to naming the album and even the artwork, I because it's she's a Mesopotamian, goddess, but what I like to do even with the music and writing is I don't want to be having things that are very direct and easy to it's just like very direct message because I want everybody to have their own experience and what they can make out of it. Is like, for example, even like the artwork is very simple. I wanted it to be very simple and to have this even bright green color because it could embodies who we are, because we can be as a person, we could be very sound and good, but on the inside we could be breaking into 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
So so these the kind of things that and 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 even being the goddess of the sea and of destruction, all the primordial is who we are in essence. It's just like we are a collective of many things that makes us who we are as a human being. So it's very complex being a human being if you want to just look at it. It's it's a very interesting how we develop and how we think and how we evolve and how we look at the world. And sometimes, and I think the pandemic itself showed the collective experience in a very bizarre way.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I mean, in reading some of the meanings behind some of the songs that were more direct, like Dementia, is about your grandfather, right? And my story about kind of what it's like going through a broken heart, and the music videos for those people listening. Listen to the rest of our conversation, but definitely check out the music videos afterwards because Dementia is a really cool AI vid. The last time I looked, it had like 30,000 views. And it's kind of like the chaos involved in that disease, sadly. But and then my story was really cool because it was claymation, which took me back to being a kid growing up in the 90s, man, and some of the stuff that I used to watch with my siblings. And that one's got like 19,000 views. But beyond the views and stuff, I really liked Eulogy too. That one has a cool, correct me if I'm wrong because you're the musician, but it kind of gave me kind of like a proggy vibe with the guitar sort of towards the end. I really enjoyed that. But this whole record, it's a really good front to back listen, man. I really feel like this is a good time capsule for, not only what like grief and that journey I feel like means for you, but just even when I read what Tiamat meant, the meaning behind that, like it kind of you can kind of visualize just sort of being on the open water and like treading the sea and going through this journey from front to back that you take people on, man. And Dementia and My Story were a couple of my favorites, but I loved Eulogy as well. But yeah, man, it's I think this music for you, just as a listener, as somebody who's a fan of music, and knowing that we share that heavy music love, it's cool to see you branch out and do like more of a singer-songwriter, deep kind of acousticy, vibe. But yeah, man, that's just that. I don't even know there's a question in there, but it was a good front to back listen. And so you deserve all your flowers for that debut, man.
Thank you. Actually, yeah, it's I mean, dementia is for me uh I wanted to try to capture his point of view. How does he sees the world? How it is to be in that state. And it's and getting into that, it's especially when you know the person and you just see them how they kind of decay. It's heartbreaking by itself, and I and it was a very intense for me even to come up with the, like writing and singing them, because the how can I translate that in a way that it's, because I'm not trying to make it like a pop and write like how, well, where's my hook?
Yeah, yeah,
It doesn't work that way. If you are in this in that state, it's you don't think of it and it's like, how can I make it like a single type of thing, like it's just chasing that. No, I just wanted to make it something like more of because unfortunately now it's more of a like everything is a single driven, everything is a more of a EP or something. So having this body work that it works as collectively as what are we as a human being, it's just, it has to be processed in that way. So I try to capture, how it goes, and in his, lens, so to speak. And even for my story, the because it's something that when I write something, I want to write something that we all at some level experience. And having that is gonna uh because there's so many great songs out there that you kind of listen to them forever, and then one day you are in a certain state and you listen to it and it's almost like a new song,
yeah.
because the the letters just, or the lyrics speaks to you in a different way all of a sudden. It just like it describes me in a way. So this is what things that I wanted to capture. And even Eulogy, that one is a hard song for me, because it's a tribute to my late grandmother, who died from cancer, and I happened to be here in the state. So and I couldn't even travel to to the funeral, and I had even to wake up like in the middle of the night and watch that funeral over a phone. So it's a very intense song for me. And even the falling leaf song, it talks as well about my brother-in-law father, who's a good friend of mine, who passed away to COVID, the disease. So it was a very hard period, just like there's so many things happening. And as I said early on, it just, this is my way of, you know, giving back to them, we, because I believe every person that we meet throughout our journey on earth, in some way they imprint something within us. It's just any interaction that we have, however how small it is, it just, you carry it with you whether you like it or not, because it goes into your memory. And therefore all these people that you have met in your life, you kind of have them in your memory, even if you don't access to them immediately, but in a way you are carrying them with you. So this is kind of a concept that I kind of look at it, is how complex we are as a human being when you start really just digging the experiences that we have. So and as you said about, because I'm trying to reflect on what you just said, especially with using the acoustic. So this was a decision that I intentionally did, because I want to create an album that it's not only to challenge myself musically, because this is, as a musician, you need to challenge yourself beyond your comfort. And because, as I said, my main instrument is bass. So I wasn't like, singer, and never, put myself as a guitarist. But still, I was able to be to do all of that and push beyond, because I don't want to do something that it's and especially, the music that I'm doing, I want to do even something else, but still have all that influences helping me in creating that record that could, it's not, yeah, how to say that is, it's not like, I want to make metals, like an album, or I don't want to be making like a folk, or just like, I just let it be. However, I let the music lead the way in the creation, and that's why it had this wide spectrum musically.
Well, honey, I want to say, man, in response to that, I'm really sorry for your loss. Genuinely, all the losses, man. And I can relate in some ways. And I'm glad that you had a creative outlet that you're able to channel that. Um, because I think it's so important, whether it's music or art of any kind, drawing, painting, all of those things are really therapeutic. And I didn't lose my grandpa during COVID, but it was 12 years ago, September 1st, that he passed. I still wear his necklace every single day. I actually keep a picture of him and my grandmother who recently passed in August when I do all these podcasts, because I like
Condolences.
keep them around, you know what I mean? And so Dementia, listening to that one was and I listened to the record a couple of times before doing this, but he suffered from the same thing at the end. And so, like, what you're talking about, where you see this person, you see him struggling with it. Like, I remember one time helping my grandpa in their condo, um help cleaning him up after a shower and stuff. And there was a moment where I looked into his eyes and I could see him in there. But I think it's one of the first and only times I've looked at a human being and been like, this is a case. You know what I mean? Like, he's trapped in this thing, and that's like I don't know that I've even said that out loud to a lot of people, but I know you can probably relate to that, man. So it's tough. He's a big part of my life, and I have his middle name. That, or my middle name rather, is his name, Victor. And so I appreciate that you were able to channel it into a positive way with the record, and even the other songs, and the people that you mentioned, man. I'm really sorry for your loss. And during COVID, I went through a breakup, and then I had numerous people pass away, like, kind of in my periphery in 2021. So when I tell you, when I listen to this with like a different ear, I appreciate the fact that you were able to channel all that, man. Because, like, for me, having this podcast, having this medium as a form of escape, it's so important. And it's a much healthier alternative, right? Music, or any art form, than some of the whether it's substance abuse or other things that people turn to just because they don't know how to cope. Because, like you said, we're complicated creatures. So yeah, it's a long way of saying, man, I'm really sorry for your losses, but I appreciate that you were able to translate it into something that was meaningful for you. Challenge yourself, like you said, step outside the metal realm, and do this. So kudos, man.
I'm really sorry for your loss as well, and that's one of the reasons why creating music and being um honest with it in terms of like making it as however you feel it, because that's how you can resonate with others, because we as humans, we more or less, we're all the same, whether you are in the US, you are in anywhere in this planet, we all have the same things, like, go down to the basics. We all have our loved ones, we all have, whether it's kids, parents, neighbors, we all, in a sense, we are all similar. So we, in a way, we all go almost to some extent similar experiences, and it's that's very important to have that, that you're not alone out there, and have that things as a solace and kind of a way to connect with the people around. And that's my goal, is to have everybody being remembered in a positive way, and to thank them for their guidance and for their, because they have affected me throughout my life, and for that I'm very grateful for them. And I'm sure, as I even like, I think in neurology, I'll be waiting to meet you again. So I kind of look, this is, despite all of that, is just, you kind of still kind of think of them in their best way. That's how you imprint them in your head, and you kind of like having that kind of hope that you'll have that the afterlife with them, and you kind of meet them. So I'm trying to give that message of hope, underlining all of that pain.
Yeah, it's it's a really beautiful way to go about it, man, you know. And I feel like you know, like the people who pass are always with us, you know. That energy is still around, you know. I guess not to get too trippy or spiritual, but just since we're talking about this, and I feel like you can relate, like, you know, connecting with that energy is important. You know, like I still talk to my grandpa. Some people listen to this might think that sounds crazy, but I do. I still, whenever I'm having a low point, or I feel like I'm lost trying to figure things out, I feel like calling on him is kind of a way to, you know, recenter. And I believe that in that energy, you know, in the mind is a powerful thing. You know, you can, with my anxiety, I can go down a lot of rabbit holes. Like you said, we're complicated creatures, but you know, I think when you can kind of get away from the noise of life, you know, and whether you can use something kind of meditative, whether it's music or, you know, exercise, whatever it may be, you know, those are things that kind of help me still connect with like him, or like my grandma who passed in August, you know.
Yeah,
um
rest of the show.
they're a big part of your life, you know what I mean? And they're you know, that energy is always, that's always around, and they're in your memory. Like even today, I still I don't have one for my grandpa, but I still have a couple of voicemails from my grandma and my phone, you know. And today was, I don't know if it's just kind of serendipitous doing this episode with you in the theme of your record, but I checked my voicemail for some reason, and I went back and listened to a message earlier today from my grandma. And it's kind of, you know, even that, like hearing somebody's voice again, you know what I mean? It's they're always still around, you know. So I think people who can relate to those themes of loss, and we all can, right? Because none of us get out of this thing alive, you know. There, everything has a finality to it in life, and death is part of life, right? But again, I've said it a few times, but I mean it, man. I think it's really cool that you were able to channel it through music, and to do something different than what you've normally done in terms of metal and heavier stuff. I think it's cool. Did you play piano on this one too, in addition to the guitar? Or
No, for the piano part, because for the drums and the piano on some other ethnic instruments, I elected to work with other musicians, because I know my limitation, and I know, like, I can do the piano, but it wouldn't be doing justice to the songs. So it's best to kind of like the things where I feel like I need contributions from others. So I have worked with Quinn. I think from he's French Japanese. He's like, he live in Japan, but he's French. Eduardo Sinatra is in Portugal. I have also, even for the My Story, I have worked with, there's a female and male vocalist in the background. And the reason why I wanted that, because it's not my story, it's our story. So having those two sounds coming in, I wanted to emphasize that the song is not about me, it's about us, it's about you and all of us who go through it. So there was so they're from, Venezuela, Argentina. I had the Wanderer and Kiss of Steel. Those ethnic instruments were done by Max from Ukraine. So it had some other people that contributed to this record, and for them I'm very grateful because their contribution brought more depth to the record. And although I think I spent over a year with Eduardo the drummer going through the stuff because I wanted very specific things. So I want to take this chance to thank him for his patience, but I guess it paid off. The
Well, in the time we have left, Hani, and thank you again so much, man, for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it, man. Um, as somebody who's, dealt with the losses that you've dealt with, that you go through on this record, um, is there any advice that you could give or be willing to give maybe to people out there who are struggling with similar things, whether it's death, whether it's a loss of love, things that helped you in that grieving process and in that healing process beyond, putting it into the music?
um is the best way is to although we it's not like to be in a spiritual way, but although we as a bodies, it decays, but the souls may live on. So I kind of try to think of them in that way. It's just the way you frame it is they might not be physically present, but they are still out there. And having that thought, it's just like, although I don't see them physically, but they are out there for me, watching over me, and I can, like connect with them in uh, you know any way I could see fit. And that's way of thinking makes it to think of death in a different way, to think of it in a is not it's not the end, it's just like the beginning of something else. So just trying to kind of make it in a way that I can cope with that, because I understand pain is very powerful. It can lead you in an undesirable path, and it can takes you really out there. And that's one of the reasons, like you said, like people sometimes can turn into substance and all of that. But the way I think of it is like, how can I do justice to them? How can I make them proud of me? That's not the path they want me to be. Although, like they're not around, but I have to be the best of me, and I have to kind of present that for the next generation as well. So this um, cycle of life continues in a good direction.
Yeah, and you said something, and thank you for sharing that, Hani. And you said something earlier that stuck with me too about how we're all, and you would know, better than me as somebody who's lived in different parts of the world, but I think deep down, like we all do want the same things. And that's why it bums me out when I see a lot of the stuff going on today, where it's like you said, if people actually just sat in a room together and talked like we're talking, which is why I love doing this podcast so much. And I don't mean that in a self-righteous way, like, oh, look at me, like I'm, Barbara Walters or something. Like, I don't mean it like that, but I just mean, you know, when you connect with people, like metal is something that you and I have in common. It doesn't matter that you were born in Yugoslavia and I was born in Ohio in the United States. You know what I mean? And regardless of religious beliefs or any of that stuff, man, or spirituality, if people could find the things that connect them, and the older I get, I think that's really important. People remember how you make them feel. There's a quote that stuck with me a long time ago, like people forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And I think it to a degree that's true. I mean, granted, there's some times where people really wrong you and you're like, I'll never forget what they said or did. But how people make you feel sticks with you, good or bad, man. And I think it's important for people if they can get to that place where they realize they're all connected. And even what you just, what you said about death, kind of reframing it, that it's not the end, it's the beginning of a new journey. And these people are still around. And in your case, you're able to immortalize them even further in music, which like you said lives on. And that's the beautiful thing about music, is it's always going to be around. um
Sure.
yeah, I think that's really cool. And that's why the theme of the show, March 4th, means a lot to me, about persevering and moving forward, because like you said, we're complicated. Humans are complicated. um, and I think it's important to talk about these things, even the darker things, because so many people shelve that. And I feel like, even from personal experience, you can only shove that down for so long before it explodes in some way or another. And it's better to have something like, like for us, like heavy music. Like for me, that's always been a positive release of negative emotion, or like I've said a few times in this conversation, art of any form, it kind of helps process all that stuff. But I think that's definitely something that's poignant to share, about reframing death, because it's hard to do when you're in it, because you miss that person, or even like the loss of a relationship, like you said, those people are burned into your memory. But if you can reframe it, that's an important piece to how you move forward.
It takes time. Yeah, as I say, it's usually hard to think when you are in the midst of it, but just give yourself grace. And when you have the moment to reflect, you can start reflecting positively. So I completely uh understand, the how hard it is for us to deal with all these things that life throws at us, and even things that you cannot even expect. And you know one day we're all good, the next day you're just like at the bottom of the pit. So it's just part of that whole journey. So it just, we need to embrace it. And as you said, they're having that, leaving that positive impression on other people and making them, you know treat them as humans. I mean, that's how simple as it goes. It just peers. It's just like they are no different from you. And in this way, it's the just being yourself. I think that's very important. Just, yeah, presenting that, it will that authenticity will radiate, because there's not a facade that you're trying to put on.
For sure. Well, Hani, I think that's a great place to put a button on this, man. I want everybody listening to check out Tiamat. It's a great listen front to back. And especially whether you're people who are fans of music, but people who maybe are going through some darker times right now. I think it'll be a good listen. But it's a good listen regardless, man. And shout out to the other musicians that you worked with on it, because it's really cool, front to back listen, man. And like I said, Eulogy, even though it's a harder one, like that one kind of stuck out to me. I'm a big fan of guitar too, and I think kind of that proggy guitar part was really cool. It kind of resonated with me. But yeah, I really appreciate connecting with you, Hani. I hope we'll do more of these in the future. And I guess just on that note, for people who aren't aware of what you're doing, let them know where they can find you out there. I'll put the links in the podcast description, but let them know where they can find you, and maybe what you've got on deck in 2024 musically.
Thank you. First of all, I want to take this chance to thank you, Mike, for giving me this chance to have this conversation. It's not easy conversations, especially when we are dealing with such a heavy topics. And even the music, having that, it's not an easy journey by itself. But we have to, some of us have to do that, is just whether it's for ourselves or for others, because we sometimes you feel you ought to do that for them. um so thank you again for this wonderful conversation. I look forward to for the other ones as the years progress and the journey continues, because I am already working on the next material. So hopefully we'll be able to get some music out in 24. Let's see how it goes, with that. And people, could find me. My main website is haniabadi.com. So it's HANIABADI.com. And you can, from there, you can look me up on all the social. It's Hani Abadi Music, mostly the handlers. And I look forward to connecting with everybody. And as I always say, don't be a stranger. So hit me up, send me a message, comment, and if I'm around, I'll definitely catch up with you, because you know, I like to have that shared experience with everybody. So thank you again, and thanks for the listeners who stuck around to listen to this podcast.
Well, Hani, thanks again so much, man, for giving me an hour of your time, especially
Oh, no worries.
being a couple hours time zone difference. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the record, and definitely keep in touch, man, for real.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Alrighty, dighty, there you have it. That was my conversation with Hani Abadi. Make sure you go follow him on Instagram at Hani Abadi Music, and that is spelled HANIABADI. His website is haniabadi.com. The links to all of his stuff will be in the podcast description for this episode. So just scroll down to the bottom of that podcast description, hit those links, and go follow and support Hani. Once again, his debut full length album, Tiamat, is out now everywhere where you get your music. I just want to say thank you so much again directly to Hani for taking the time to come on the podcast and share your story and your musical journey with myself and the listeners, man. I related a lot to the record. As I told you, my grandfather passed away when I was 23 years old. I still wear his necklace every single day. And me doing this podcast has a lot to do with him. Just in terms of how I treat people, how I talk with people, and communicate with people. I learned a lot from my grandfather, man. I've got a picture of him and my grandma. May they both rest in peace. She just passed in August, and they were both such loving and involved people with myself and all of my cousins. All their grandkids and their kids, man. And my grandpa suffered from dementia at the end, and it's a terrible, terrible thing, man, to see somebody, be a literal and figurative shell of themselves, and to see his consciousness trapped inside a physical body that was aging and falling apart. But then to have, your memory and your speech and your recall of things be affected. It's tough, man. It's tough. And I also my grandma Bauman, my dad's mom, who also has since passed. She passed away in I believe it was October of 2021, right in the thick of COVID. She suffered from dementia at the end, and it's really tough, man. It's a very difficult thing, but to translate a negative and a positive, when you look at what Hani did with Tiamat, what I'm doing with this podcast, it's that's what this theme of this show is all about. March 4th, perseverance, moving forward, taking those negative things, those dark things, and translating them into something positive and getting to the light. And Hani did an amazing job with this record. I know it was challenging for him, as you guys heard in that conversation. It's definitely a big switch up from, the metal music he makes in Bilocate, but it came out awesome, man. It really takes you on a journey. And again, when you learn more about the meaning of Tiamat, the primordial goddess of the sea, it's like a really cool front to back listen, man. So once again, please go check out Tiamat. Available everywhere where you get your music. There's a lot of cool music videos up on YouTube and lyric videos that Hani's put out as well. And go check out his work and Bilocate, man. If you love to headbang, if you love metal, check it out, man. But I want to say thank you once again, Hani, for taking the time, man. It was great talking with you. Please keep in touch. I also want to give a big shout out and big thanks to Johnny Zirkle over at High Road Publicity, man. Johnny has been a huge supporter of this show. He sends me a lot of great artists like Hani, and it's really cool to be able to connect with people in a positive way and be at a point now where I've got really good people out there in the music PR end of things like Johnny who are supporting the show, man. And make sure you go check out the Wildfires project. Johnny's a dope musician and audio engineer himself. But yeah, man, and thank you to all of you who take the time to check out the show. If you're a first time listener, if you're a fan or friend of Hani or Bilocate and or of Tiamat and specifically, Hani's name and music and his career to this point has led you here. Thank you so much for checking out the show. It's always great to have new people on the pirate ship. And if you did like what you heard, even though I hate begging for this stuff, man, if you take the time to like and subscribe, you don't miss a beat with the show. If you take the time to leave a rating and a review either on Apple or Spotify, tell a friend to tell a friend, interact with the posts that I put up on social media when I put these episodes out on Instagram at March 4th Pod, all those things go a really long way in helping the show get out to more people. And ultimately, that's what I want, man. I want more people to find out about great artists like Hani, who are, really exemplifying, what the show's all about. March 4th, persevere, move forward, chase your dreams. And again, I just can't stress enough how important it is to unite with people. As you guys heard, man, we come from completely different walks of life, but that thing that unites us, that thing that tears down those barriers, as Hani even said, is music. And especially metal music, man. We're loyal to the soil. Metal fans are some of the most loyal, energetic fans that exist of any genre of music. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a metal fan. It's true. We buy the merch, we buy the albums, we go to the shows. You know what I mean? Heavy music has gotten me through a lot of really dark times. But I'm a fan of all music, and it was really cool to listen to this record and hear, like I said, more of an acoustic singer-songwriter type vibe. Jar of Flies from Alice in Chains is one of my favorite records, and they're a heavier band that has a lot of dark subject matter, and that EP had a real, acousticy, more introspective vibe, I would say. It's not as in your face as some of their other records, some of their other songs, man. But Nutshell's probably my favorite Alice in Chains song. So just to relate it to Hani and the metal work that he does in Bilocate in this record, I kind of liken it to that. You know what I mean? Where you have bands that are so gifted that they can present you music that's more fierce, more aggressive, more in your face, but then they can switch it up and do things that are more introspective and more heady, and really take you on that type of journey. You know what I mean? So it's a great front to back listen. Go check out Tiamat, and once again, please follow Hani on Instagram at Hani Abadi Music, and his website is haniabadi.com. Once again, you can follow me on Instagram at March 4th Pod, on YouTube at March 4th Pod. My website, march4th.podbean.com, is in the links to the podcast description as well. So thank you to everybody once again, sincerely, man, who's rocking and rolling with me with this show. I'm just really grateful. I'm really grateful for everybody, and I'm grateful for my life. And I'm really excited about what 2024 has in store. And this was another great episode, that once again just exemplifies what this show and what the meaning of March 4th is all about. So on that note, I'm going to wrap things up officially. Keep the faith and be kind to one another, courtesy of Hani off of Tiamat. Here is the song. Take it away. Peace.
I wanna feel good every single day. I want a love that never hurts me. I want a life with no heartache. I want the joy that never ends. I want to live forever young. I want to be crawls under my skin and flows within. A parasite that will never let go. A world of wishes with the streams of wants. An ocean of possession with no ends. I need many things, though I know it's not right. But why would I care? It's just my right to own you and use you to satisfy my craving. The power of possession gets me high, and I welcome that emotion with open arms. United, we become one. Take it away. It's never enough for me. Love or hate, sorrow or joy. Round and round, tick tock. The sounds of time has stuck.